On today's show, the Atlanta Hawks win their third straight game and close up their homestand, their final one of 2024, on a positive note. We'll get into all of what transpired and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1875 of Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Saturday here in late December. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL playoffs are almost here. It's not too late to get on the regular season action as well with FanDuel, because right now, if you're a new customer, you finish regular season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. The place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make it your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Please check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. That includes YouTube on the video side. So please like the video as you are watching this podcast. And once again, subscribe and tell your friends about the show. We'll be diving in now to what became a 120-110 win for the Hawks at home against the Miami Heat on this Saturday afternoon/evening. Their third consecutive win for the Hawks. Obviously playing quite well to end this homestand, their final one of this calendar year. Now 15, I should say, on the season. 10-7 at home, and playing quite well, I will say. Also, the last home game for about 2 weeks. They have a 6-game road trip that begins on Sunday, so a little bit more extra emphasis on this one to end the homestand on a high note. And they did it without a lot of rotation pieces in this game. They were shorthanded objectively in this one. Dyson Daniels was scratched with illness on Saturday. Bogdanović missed his third straight game with a leg contusion. And I think it was a decent chance the Hawks were holding Bogey back a little bit because they play again tomorrow, and it would have been surprising to me and everyone if he had played on both ends of it back-to-back. But they had 3 of their top 8 guys out in this game. Those 2 guys, in addition to Onyeka Okongwu, that's a real absence for Atlanta. And yes, Miami was without Jimmy Butler in this game. He is the headliner as far as guys who missed this game nationally, but they had everybody else available in this game, basically, did Miami. And the Hawks were down 3, again, of 3 of their top 7 or 8 guys, including their defensive ace. And still, in fact, the Hawks at FanDuel Sportsbook, our sponsor on the podcast, the Hawks were favored a little bit before the game started. And then before Dyson and Bogey were ruled out, after that was the case, the Hawks were underdogs, actually, at tip-off in this one. It was a close game really throughout. The Hawks won this game by 10 points. It was not as lopsided as you might think based on that score. In fact, in the first half, no one led more than 7 points the entire first half. In the second half, the Hawks never trailed, but that sounds more comfortable than it actually was. I'll say this, they were not exactly in a comfortable position really at any point along the way in the fourth quarter until the very, very, very end of this game. And that was able to kind of close the door. They won this game by 10 points. That was also their largest lead of the game. They were never in secure control, I would say, along the way. But still, the Hawks played very well in this game objectively when you factor in their absences, who was available, their opponent, all of those things. The Hawks had a very strong overall performance, and they were solid enough defensively in this game. I want to say that for sure right now. But I want to begin with the offense because it was a very nice offensive game for Atlanta. And I've been saying this for a while now. The Hawks have been playing good basketball for about the last 5 or 6 weeks, basically. And a lot of that has been led by their defense. They've been in the top 10 or 12 on defensive rating in the last month plus. And that's not a coincidence. When you factor in their winning games, that's because the defense has been really, really good in that stretch. Tonight, it was also quite good. But offensively, they had a 122 offensive rating in this game without Bogey, without Okongwu, and against a team in Miami that's good defensively. They're not elite defensively, but they're extremely well coached. They play very physically. This is a game that I think was officiated to the way that Miami likes the game to be officiated. They were able to be very, very physical in the way the Hawks aren't always loving. But at the same time, the Hawks did all of that. And then, honestly, Trae didn't even shoot the ball well in this game. They had multiple guys in this game did not shoot the ball great for the Hawks. And they still were able to kind of overcome some of that stuff and play very well, I would say, overall. Now, it helps that they shot the ball well in this game. 51% from the floor, 41% from 3, 15 of 37. That's not crazy, but it's obviously better than you would expect the Hawks to shoot this season. They were okay at the line, but the big thing is, by the way, overall, that's a 63% true shooting mark. That's obviously well above what the Hawks average for the season, so that was a big part of why the Hawks played so well offensively, but they also took care of the basketball. And that has been a huge factor. When they haven't played well offense recently, it's because they have had some ball security issues, in particular when Trae sits on the bench. But tonight, they only had 13 turnovers in the game. That's not uber elite, but certainly that is more than solid enough for Atlanta. In fact, no one other than actually the leader in turnovers in this game was Larry Nance with 4, which is kind of funny for a center to do that. But Trae only had 3, and nobody else had more than 1 turnover. So the Hawks were really, really solid, taking care of the ball, getting shots to the rim, And when you do that, you're apt to have better results. And also, this is their 20th game this season, the Hawks had out of 32 games. So more about 2/3 of their games so far, they've had 25 assists or more, which doesn't sound like a ton. It's not, but only one team in the league has more assist games and 25 more than the Hawks do. That's a very, very impressive number. They had 34 assists in this basketball game. And of course, Trae is the biggest part of that. Trae, I thought the first half tonight, as we'll probably touch on a little bit later, Trae was like virtuosic offensively. Like he was ridiculously good as a passer, even by his standards in the first half. He has this one with 15 assists in the game, but every single player that played for the Hawks, all 9 guys, had at least 1 assist. They were moving the ball well the entire game, and Miami makes you do that. That's kind of one of their staples defensively. And the Hawks did that without turning the ball over. A lot of good moments in this game, setting up high-quality looks, and that was a very important piece of the puzzle because they were just okay on the glass. They did get to the rim a lot. 56 points in the paint is a very solid number for the Hawks, but between the rim attacks, the bench scoring, 59 points off the bench for the Hawks. That's not, especially in a game when you're already missing key guys, it's pretty darn impressive. Obviously led by Hunter, but Matthews, Nance, etc. They got and ran a little bit when they kind of needed to when Trae was on the bench in this game. And then also just like big picture, they just did everything kind of solidly well offensively. There were some droughts to be sure, but they did not need an outlier shooting game. They just really played well. They got a lot of good looks along the way, good passes, very few mistakes offensively, and that was very impressive. And overall, like balance, only one starter for the Hawks had more than 11 points in this game. Like it wasn't like there was an individual ridiculousness from a scoring perspective, but the Hawks just played very well offensively, and it was pretty impressive if you ask me. Now on defense, it was also quite good. Honestly, I don't want to undersell that whatsoever. The Hawks had a 110 defensive rating in this game. Part of that was they were great on the glass. The Heat only had 8 offensive rebounds on 50 missed shots. That's actually extremely, extremely impressive defensively on the glass for the Hawks. And it wasn't just Capella. It was like a team effort. Jalen's a great defensive rebounder. Nance was good on the glass in this game. It was a team situation where they were just securing the ball. And what you don't want is to give up easy opportunities. And the possession battle in this game was basically dead even. Usually that's not great for the Hawks. They only forced 9 turnovers defensively, for instance, in this game. Without Dyson, only had 7 steals and only 2 blocks. But other than creating havoc events, they did everything else really well defensively. Miami shot the ball, not great. 44% from the field, 32% from 3. Like not outlier bad either. I think the Hawks just like contested at a high level. Obviously I think Tyler Hero was quite good in this one. But outside of that, they didn't give a whole lot of open looks up to anybody else other than Haywood Highsmith, who's kind of the guy they wanted to leave open in some respects. They did a pretty good job, I think, overall in this one. 19 fast break points is allowed. It's probably more than you want to, but only allowed 23 assists. The Hawks just made life difficult for Miami. And yeah, no Butler certainly matters, but Hero was really, really, really good, and he's their offensive engine in a lot of ways right now for the Heat. And with that said, him doing that without Dyson, the Hawks doing this without Dyson is a very impressive thing. There were some lives we'll talk about later on in the podcast where the Hawks are playing some defensive personnel groups that are not very good. Like they closed this game with Trae, Garrison, and Larry Nance together, which I've said in the past, and I would say again, even right now, that's kind of not going to get a lot of things done defensively with that trio. But in this game, they figured out that there was no one that was going to just torch them, which is true. Hero was good, but he didn't like them on fire. Bam Adebayo, not exactly a dominant offensive force a lot of the time, even though he's a good player. But the Hawks play with fire a little bit there, but they leaned offense late and still were able to get stops. And that balance is very impressive. So long story short, it wasn't like an A+++ game for the Hawks. They obviously had the highest of highs possible on Thursday. If you missed it, I did a breakdown of that game when the Hawks scored 50 points in the fourth quarter on Thursday to get a memorable victory. This wasn't that, but they played very, very solid basketball. Never trailed by more than 7 points in the whole game. They were just right there the whole way. And then the second half, every time I felt like the Heat might make a run, the Hawks made one play. They get a stop here. They get a good bucket there, a good quality offense possession there. They kind of just knocked on wood the entire game. They were just chopping wood, making plays. And Quinn talked about defense late. I definitely agree with that. It was a well-rounded, impressive kind of, just rock-solid win. They were, again, small underdogs in this game at FanDuel. They win this game kind of going away at the end of it. And crucially, because, look, the schedule is difficult in the next couple of weeks. They probably won't win every game the next couple of weeks. But to get a win like this is very, very impressive. And I'll leave it there for now. It was a very strong two-sided victory for Atlanta. Offense good, Defense very solid, and overall a very impressive performance from the Hawks. All right, we'll get into how this game unfolded a little bit more with some details, some of the highs, some of the rotation breakdowns that the Hawks were kind of forced to go to without a lot of their personnel, etc. First, though, a word from our partners on the podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you do not need a silver spoon to eat the financial papers of the 1%. At Robinhood Gold, they allow others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society, and now the resourceful individual at Robinhood Gold. You're the very little rate of 4.25% APY on invested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privilege of the high net worth for any net worth, and these generous benefits are only available now for $5 per month at Robinhood Gold. The new standard is here. The new gold standard is here. With Robinhood Gold, sign up at robinhood.com/gold. That is robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For price specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, as we'll get into more and more throughout the podcast, the Hawks were again shorthanded in this game. They ended up starting with Pete Krejci in the starting lineup in place of Dyson Daniels. And he had the early assignment on Tyler Hero. The Hawks did a lot of different things on Hero in this game. They had Veet guard him. They had Keaton Wallace defend him in this game. And then they ended the game with DeAndre Hunter, who has not been tasked with doing that much at all this year. In fact, that's been helpful to have Hunter be more of a secondary defender. But without Dyson in this game, they kind of had to have some pull out of the stops movements in this one. But I thought, and look, I'll just say this now, I've poked fun at Hero for years. I've been very low on Tyler Hero, and I think justifiably so. I think I was right, to be honest, for the majority of his career so far. But this year, he's been a different player. He is shooting and being much more efficient. The passing is better, et cetera, et cetera. He's having a great season, and he was very good in this game. But the Hawks also kept them in check on a bad night for Dyson to be out, honestly. Obviously, Hero isn't quite the level of superstar player that some guys are, but Dyson would have obviously been on Hero the entire game, basically, because Butler, while he's a bigger name and probably still a better player than Hero, Butler is much more of a big physical bruiser, that's better suited to be facing against Jaylen or DeAndre Hunter, whereas Dyson would have been the guy chasing around Hero in a lot of ways. Anyway, the Hawks did a good job at least containing him and not getting beaten too badly. And I think, look, the Hawks closed with Garrison Matthews playing, and that was the right decision in some respects. I would have started Garrison, except for they probably didn't want Ricochet to have to cover Hero the entire game. Alas, it was fine to me. Defensively, it was pesky early on. The offense, though, was not great early on, especially despite what I said earlier about how good they were the entire game. They had only 8 points on the first 10 possessions offensively before the first time out. Rotationally, no big surprises. I thought they might give Daquan Plowden, the new two-way guy, a little bit of a run. But he was actually inactive in this game, so I was not surprised at all. They went with Keaton Wallace as kind of the extra ninth man, who was there was basically 8 guys that I was guaranteeing in my mind were going to play the starting 5 in this game, plus Garrison Matthews, Larry Nance, DeAndre Hunter, and it was Keaton was the 9th guy. No surprise there. But by the way, it was his first minutes, actually only the second time he's played in rotation in about 6 weeks. The other time was the blowout loss to Memphis when Trae did not play. That was kind of when he was forced to play a little bit more. In this game, kind of a smaller role, but still, they did try this thing again. Mixed results, I will say. They tried to play without Trae and Jaylen together 3 different times in this game. Look, I'm not going to nitpick too much. I don't like that idea. I get kind of the theory behind it because the Jaylen only lineups have not been great at times this year. But I personally think that it's just kind of lighting yourself on fire a little bit to play without Trae and Jaylen. And the first time they sat together in the first half, they got steamrolled, honestly. And then in a bit of good fortune to make my point, it's not always this clean, but they were bad without Trae and Jaylen in the first quarter. As soon as they returned to the game, they also went on a 22-8 overall run. Trae had 4 assists in a row. By the way, he had 7 assists in the first quarter. He was very, very impressive. Nance had a big dunk against Killel Ware, actually. He can still get up there a little bit when he still loads up. Larry's a little bit older now, but formerly was a dunk contest level kind of guy, big-time leaper, and showed one there. Also had a nice buzzer-beating layup on a nice pass by Jaylen to end the first quarter. By my count, the Hawks scored 27 points on their last 15 possessions of the first quarter, which is like a 180 offensive rating. They were really, really impressive there, and had 12 assists and 2 turnovers in that first quarter. There was some foul trouble, though. Jalen Johnson had 3 fouls with 11 minutes to go in the first half, and that forced the Hawks to play, again, without Trae and Jaylen a little bit more. They went a little bit small. They had Veet and Ricochet as the forwards at one point because they had Hunter can only play so many minutes in his role that they like him in right now, especially on a back-to-back as the Hawks play again tomorrow. Trae took a little while to get up. Actually, he went down pretty hard after it seemed like he knocked knees with Haywood Highsmith. Fortunately, he seemed to be fine after that. That was important. They were pretty clunky without Trae and Jaylen on the floor, they did a better job those in the second quarter. They did a good job pushing the pace. I thought Vit Krejci, for all of his weaknesses as a point guard, does push the pace. He's a good connective piece, and he's definitely willing to play faster and push and push and push. And I thought he set up Garrison Matthews for a nice backdoor play. Garrison had a monster dunk, actually, that got the entire bench fired up. He tried one later on, actually, against Bam Adebayo that did not go as well. He got fouled. But that was a fun play. And a reminder that Garrison, while not a great athlete, he can jump. He's got some pretty decent leaping ability, we'll say. So that was an impressive little display there. And they closed pretty strong to go up by 3 points at halftime. They were plus 11 with Trae and Jaylen on the court in that first half, not so much with them off the court. Trae, as I said, I sort of teased it earlier, but had this unbelievable passing half. He had 11 assists in that first quarter. In the first half, 20 as a team. And they did kind of give up Miami to some pretty good shooting, but they were able to be up by 3 nonetheless. A nice sequence, I thought, in the middle of the third quarter when they had to play. Well, they didn't have to, but they chose to play without Trae and Jaylen again. And then Matthews and Hunter, who had big games off the bench, both of them combined for 44 points in this game. They hit back-to-back threes that I thought were really impressive because they were really good ball movement situations for the offense. It wasn't individual creation. It was passing. And that's kind of what you have to do without Trae and Jaylen. There's nobody else that really creates an advantage off the bounce. I also thought defensively, I thought Keaton Wallace and Zachary Richer in that stretch were really good defensively to kind of get some important stops when the Hawks were trying to basically triage without Trae and Jaylen on the court. And offensively, they were really good in the third quarter. And, it wasn't always pretty, but they had 32 points, only 2 turnovers in that period, hit 5 threes, and kind of stabilized, going up by 9 points into the fourth. Now, there was some very strange officiating. I don't even think it was like lopsided towards the Heat necessarily, just kind of the way the game was called in the second half in particular. Where they were letting a lot of stuff go. Like Kevin Shard and I from Hawks.com were kind of baffled by this. Like there would be 3 or 4 moments where stuff was not getting called that's pretty much always called on both sides of the floor. And then they make a very ticky-tack touch foul call. It's like, what is going on here? There was one time in the fourth quarter early on, I even tweeted this out. I think the Hawks were getting very frustrated with the officiating. There was one situation where, Quinn challenged a play that I didn't love that he challenged, but I understood it. I think there's this fine line you have to walk when you're frustrated with the officials, which Quinn always acknowledges pregame and postgame. You want to be in the game, but you don't want to have them take you out of the game. You can be emotional, you can be invested or whatever. And the Hawks were kind of teetering that line a little bit in the fourth quarter, but they did settle in a little bit after that. But I will say I did not love the officiating, generally speaking, especially in that second half. In that late third, early fourth quarter, it was a little bit topsy-turvy and not in a fun way if you enjoy basketball. Anyway, it was a 2-point game at one point, and it was a 1-point game after that. So the lead was kind of not safe, but it was kind of more stabilized. It's in the middle of the fourth quarter that it became a little bit tight. They was in the 4 to 6 point range for a little bit in the middle of the quarter. One thing I didn't love was that they played Keaton Wallace next to Trae for a few minutes mid fourth quarter. And I understood the theory of it in some ways because they were, of course, shorthanded, etc. They eventually went to Garrison, which I liked, and I even called that out in real time and so on social media. But the one reason to play Keaton there would have been to defend Tyler Hero, but they weren't having him do that. They had Hunter on Hero, which was fine. But then if you're going to do that, take Keaton out of the game. You want to go with more offense at that point in time, which eventually I think Quinn was basically exactly that. If we're going to have Hunter do this anyway, let's get a shooter out there. Garrison could chase around Duncan Robinson. He's capable of doing that, and he did in this game. I would consider Richer, honestly. I thought Richer was okay, and then just more size defensively. He shot it not great this game, but still would have been kind of the best of both worlds. But I think that obviously worked. They went with the offense with Garrison, but I didn't love that middle stretch with Trae and Keaton. Hero hit a deep 3 over Hunter with 4 minutes to go to make it a 1-point game, and that was kind of the only time it was a little bit froggy. I would say a couple times in a row where it was back to 1, back to 3, back to 1, back to 3. There was good possession when Hunter drew a foul as a screener, made free throws to go by 3 points. And then defensively, with 2.5 minutes to go, they had this awesome rep defensively. They swarmed on the perimeter. They got Bam ISO'd against Hunter. And Hunter is not a huge advantage there against Bam, but Hunter did a great job letting Bam kind of be Bam. And I say that in a not so nice way. Bam's tendency on offense sometimes is to kind of settle for a contested 10 or 11 footer that he can make, but isn't a great shot, especially in an advantage situation. He had one earlier in the game where Bam had Trae on him and no help. And he kind of settled. And he made the shot, but it was why are you taking that shot for? Just go to the rim through Trae. But anyway, Hunter forced that shot, contested it well. He misses it. And then you get some movement towards the under the floor, up by 3. You found Garrison Matthews in the corner. He pump fakes a corner 3, drives hard, tries to dunk on Bam, which was kind of funny, but he gets fouled, makes both, and you're up by 5. suddenly you're like, have a little bit of breathing room there for the first time in a little while. Then after that, they got a stop that was big. And then they passed on the next possession in a great, encouraging way. A couple of like decent quality looks that they could have taken. They didn't shoot those shots. They passed out of them. They find Trae. Trae does Trae stuff, calmly breaks the paint, drops off to Nance for a dunk. And then to me, it was like, all right, they're going to win this game. It wasn't over. You're up by 7 with like a minute and a half to go. That was a great sequence that I thought the Hawks did a very good job, like being under control, getting the right shot, a high quality look from Trae to Nance, and they celebrated that like it was a big play, and it was. Miami then misses a 3, and then for me, the real dagger was up 7. Jalen hits a corner 3 to go up by 10 with like a minute plus to go. Miami did make a 3 right after that, after a timeout, but it was mostly safe, up 10 with 70 seconds to go. The one thing you don't want to do is allow a 3 there, which they did, and then Trae missed a free throw, so it was a little bit dicey, but up 8, they get one stop. All they had to do was basically get one stop. They finally got that one, and then offensively, look, the lineup they played in crunch time, Trae, Garrison with Hunter, Jaylen, and Larry Nance is an offense first lineup, like to be sure. That group has great spacing, not so much defense and rebounding. I mean, obviously a little bit of Jaylen could do some of that stuff, and Hunter's a pretty big 3, but I thought it was a really impressive job by that offensive lineup to get a handful of important stops at the end, which Quinn said as well. I would totally agree with that. They didn't shoot well in the fourth quarter. 3rd episode from the field in the fourth for the Hawks. In a game when they did shoot well on the whole, but they got enough stops down the stretch. And you wouldn't have guessed that by that lineup, but it worked out very well. You know, having Trae with the ball in his hands is very, very helpful. They played a little bit slower than I wanted to at the end of the game, but that's kind of just the way that NBA basketball goes sometimes. I thought Jaylen was awesome for the most part in this entire game. And again, you know, Nance, especially late, I thought Nance did a good job of, shielding off guards. Not a great rebounding monster there or like a rim protector, but did a good job of like just playing on the perimeter. They played a lot of 5-out stuff. That was very, very helpful. So long story short, the Hawks were particularly impressive. Like there was no one barrage. Like their one big run they had in the game was in that first quarter, basically to kind of, push things open after they'd fallen behind. But after that, it was like just slow and steady win the race. Like they never like broke it open, even at the end. Like there was a little bit of a mini run, but a couple of big plays. But overall, just rock solid. And we'll get into the individual contributions in this one. Play to get to from DeAndre Hunter, who's been playing great in recent days. A big game for Jaylen, Trae's rock solid, Nance, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll get into all that in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and the NFL playoffs are almost here. It's not too late to get on the regular season action in the NFL with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, if you're a new customer, there's a season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. There's so many ways to pick up a W this season at FanDuel. Not only can you bet on who's going to win the game, but they also have bets on which players will score touchdowns, how your boys' teams will score, and so much more. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use. Gives you everything that you need to place your bets all in one place. And they have everything you need to actually find in the sports betting space overall, from over-unders to point spreads and money lines. They have game props and player props, future bets, same-game parlays, live betting, and so much more. The app at FanDuel is safe. It's secure. They cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NBA and the NFL, of course, college football, all kinds of bowl games, playoff stuff, etc. Baseball, WNBA, hockey, golf, tennis. They have soccer, both domestic and international, F1 and NASCAR in the auto racing space, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to join right now. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bet. That's $250 in bonus bet. That's a lot of money. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sport partner of the NFL. All right, we'll dive in now to the individual players and how they performed in this one. Again, no Dyson, no Bogey, no Okongwu. For those asking, and I'm doing the same thing, by the way, no update yet on Okongwu. The Hawks were due to update on Okongwu a couple days ago. This is his 5th game in a row he's missed, so we're all kind of flying blind a little bit. Maybe that'll come out between now and Sunday's game in Toronto, but it's a big question mark right now on his return or status or injury. It's the knee. That's all we know right now, and circling that one. But obviously, it helps to have Larry Nance in his stead. In fact, Larry Nance, we'll start there. 10 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals for Larry. He did have 4 turnovers to lead the team, but was plus 13 off the bench, 4 of 5 on 2s, 0 of 1 from 3. I thought he had a good game in this game. Like, obviously, he's not the same kind of defensive anchor as Capella. He isn't as good of a rim protector, etc. But I think you see some of the value of him being able to play on the perimeter a little bit, move his feet. And yeah, defensively, it's not as good. But offensively, he allows you to do so much different stuff. Good passer, even though with obviously a little bit overzealous today with the 4 turnovers. But on a night where he didn't shoot the ball well from 3-point range, he still just gives you more spacing. And again, a very nice luxury to have a third center like Larry Nance. Like, he's just overqualified for the role. Right now, he's in the backup center role. That makes sense in a lot of different ways. And the bench was very good in this game, and so was Larry. Keaton Wallace, 14 minutes, Off the bench, 5 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal for Keaton. He was -9. Like the Hawks were not good. As much as the bench, quote unquote, was good in this game, it was the bench with the starters. Like when they did not have Trae and Jaylen, they weren't very good in this game, which is it's very natural. Basically Keaton played a little bit with Trae, but the Hawks were +17 with Trae and -7 without Trae. Not a huge surprise. That's kind of what happens with this Hawks team. But I thought Keaton did a perfectly fine job. He had one nice straight line drive. That was a nice moment, just taking advantage of the situation. Defensively, he wasn't great on Hero. Like for whatever reason, I think Hero just kind of saw a smaller guy and got a little excited and was overplaying on a little bit on Wallace. But I thought he was fine. Like it's a reminder that Keaton is a two-way guy. Like he's not supposed to be in the rotation, but he's done a good job filling in admirably. And this is the spot where you kind of just needed him. Like it's basically you're choosing between Keaton and David Roddy for that last spot. Maybe you could have gone to Plowden, but even then, that's a little bit deeper into the bench. So I thought Keaton did a good job. If Dyson returns or Bogey returns on Sunday, I don't think you'll probably see Keaton much. But this is why you have a guy that's a very sort of experienced, high-level two-way player in Keaton. He did a good job off the bench in this game. Big games from DeAndre Hunter and Garrison Matthews. So Garrison, it's been a bit of a roller coaster this week for Garrison Matthews. So against Minnesota, he was incredible. 25 points, hit 7 threes, just played out of his mind, basically, on Monday. Then on Thursday, I thought he was pretty awful, honestly, against the Bulls. He was 1-7 from the floor, just didn't have really much of anything. They won the game, but he was not the reason. He was pretty bad. And then tonight, he was great. So part of that is that Garrison's like a 10th man. Like that's kind of what you're going to get from him. He's a shooting specialist. Like he makes shots. It's obviously going to look good, et cetera. But he was really good in this game. 18 points on one from 2, actually, which was the big dunk. 4-7 from 3, got to the line 5 times, had 2 assists, had a steal, 1 turnover. Defensively, he competed. Like he wasn't great, but he was decent enough, chasing around Duncan Robinson, chasing around Terry Rozier a little bit. Like I thought he was fine. I think he definitely competed there. And the shooting's so valuable. Like even when it doesn't go on all the time, like just the gravity he has, he was really good in this one. DeAndre Hunter has been out of his mind for a while. That's not breaking news to anybody that listens to the podcast or watches this Hawks team. But this is his 14th consecutive game with 15 points or more. And it may not sound like much. People kind of, I tweeted that out today, like, oh, okay. No, that's a big deal. If you're coming off the bench, 15 points is not a small number. And I'm not like the scoring is everything guy by any means. I value other things a lot. But he's been so efficient and so good as a scorer/shooter. 5 rebounds as well, 2 assists in this game. He was 4 of 7 on 2s, 4 of 7 on 3s. Made 6 free throws at the free throw line. I've been joking with people online about this. Like at some point, the math will tell you Hunter can't shoot this well all season long. But I keep saying that and he keeps doing it. So maybe he'll keep doing it. I tend to think that there's some regression coming, but hey, he's been out of his mind. Playing with aggressiveness too. Like Quinn got asked about DeAndre pregame and noted this, like he's playing fast and like he's not ball stopping. He's taking more threes for sure, but he's like, they're trying to get him on the catch and get him on the move. Like he's just doing a good job fitting in and then also just making every shot, which obviously helps. So he's been huge for this run. That's very obvious, but he was really good in this game. And plus 15 off the bench. To the starters, V. Krejci played the least, 23 minutes, 7 points, 5 assists for V, only 1 turnover. Like I thought V was actually totally fine in this game. Like he wasn't the problem when Trae sat on the bench. He did his job for the most part. Played more than he has usually with Trae, given there was no Dyson and no Bogey in this one. But I thought V was okay. Defensively, he was fine. Didn't do anything great, but it just was rock solid, basically. Ricochet, similar story, 9 points, 4 rebounds for Zach. Had 1 assist, 3 of 8 from the floor, 1 of 4 from 3. Didn't shoot it well, but I think defensively did a pretty good job. A couple of mistakes, only had 1 turnover. Like I thought he looked okay, just didn't get shots to go down for the most part. Had 1 nice drive, they just couldn't finish, for instance. But like a rookie game, but was generally fine, fitting in the scheme and defending at a high level. Clint Capella, 6 points, 7 rebounds, had an assist and a steal. -3 in the game. He was only 3 from the floor. Was fine. Like defensively did his job for the most part. Offensively, certainly they were better with Nance, more space on the floor. Without like someone like Bogey, when there was no Garrison, the displacement was not great. I think you wanted to get Clint out of there a little bit. Close with Nance, that makes sense to me. But I thought Capella was not the problem. He did a fine job, especially defensively in this one. And then Trae and Jaylen. So we'll go to Trae first. Trae had 11 points, 15 assists, 3 turnovers. Like that's obviously a great ratio. 1 of 4 from 2, 2 of 9 from 3. He'll have better shooting games than this. Obviously, I think Trae sneakily has been shooting the ball pretty darn well in recent days. Not tonight, but I think he had 4 or 5 games in a row where he was pretty darn efficient as a scorer. Yeah, going back to the Milwaukee game, he had I think it was 4 straight games, but he was like extremely efficient. Tonight, not so much as a scorer, but 15 assists. Like the first half was truly wonderkin stuff as a passer. 15 assists in the game. Someone asked me after the game, like, was this the lowest scoring game Trae's had in a win this year? And no, actually. He had a game against Sacramento where he had 19 assists, didn't shoot the ball well, and they won the game. The Hawks are more than capable of winning when Trae's not scoring it a lot if he's passing the way that he was tonight. I've said this forever. Trae's best skill is his passing. It's always been talked about as a scorer, the deep shooting, all those things. His best trait is as a passer. It's not even close. He's a generational passer. I don't say that lightly. He just is. And the fact that he was able to set up teammates in this game, like, I think he probably could have more assists than this. Like, it was crazy how good he was as a passer. And again, plus 17 with Trae, minus 7 without Trae. It felt that way the entire game, honestly. And then Jalen Johnson was awesome too. 28 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists. Did have 4 fouls, but did a good job navigating that. He had 3 fouls early in the second quarter and did a good job the rest of the game, only getting 1. Put a lot in the fourth quarter. 2 block shots. He was 11 of 17 on twos. Very active in attacking the rim, which you love to see. That's the one thing about Jalen. Sometimes he kind of floats a little bit. Not tonight. He was very aggressive, and you love to see that. Only got to the line for 1 attempt, which is not really indicative of how well he played going to the rim. Yeah, there were a few times where he could have maybe gone a little bit more physically straight toward the rim rather than trying to like be more crafty. But I like him getting downhill in general. And this is kind of a sneaky standalone game. It wasn't a national TV game, but it was NBA TV for the Hawks, and it was the only game I went 3 o'clock, and I saw some national people taking note of Jalen's performance. Good. Like, he's obviously been great this whole year. He's still averaging, I think, 20, 10, and 5 for the season. Like, it's not a small thing that what he's doing this year. Got some all-star buzz coming out of this game. Like, we'll hold that from later on. We'll go a little bit closer to that, but I thought Jalen was awesome. And yeah, I mean, when they had their guys on the court, they dominated this game. Not dominated, probably too much, is probably saying too much, but plus 18 for Jalen, plus 17 for Trae, plus 15 for DeAndre Hunter. Like, that's how this game was. They were the better team, and they held serve at home, even with a shorthanded roster. All right, from here, the Hawks go to Toronto for a game on Sunday evening. So if you listen to this podcast a little bit later than usual, the game might be happening right now. It's the start of a 6-game road trip. It's a long, long trip, by far their longest remaining road trip of the season. Again, 2-week trip. They don't play again at home until 2 weeks from today. They play Houston at home on a Saturday. This is a big rest disadvantage game for the Hawks on Sunday. They're playing the Raptors. The Raptors are not very good. We'll just be honest about that. They're not. But the Raptors they have a 2 full day rest advantage. They haven't played since Thursday. And because of that, it's going to look funny to people that are not paying close attention. So listen to me when I say this now. The Hawks currently, as we're talking, are 1-point favorites at FanDuel. 1-point favorites. And that's going to sound crazy when you look at the record, because Toronto is 7-24. They're not good. But what they are is massively advantaged schedule-wise in this game, which does matter. There are injuries, though. In fact, the Raptors are listing 6 guys as questionable right now. 6 guys. Bruce Brown, old pal Bruno Fernando, Davion Mitchell, Jakob Poeltl, Jamal Shed, and Jacoby Walter are all listed as questionable for the game right now. And also one more guy, quickly, one of the better players is out. So there's a chance the Hawks are the healthier team. We'll see. We'll see about Trae. We'll see about Dyson. We'll see about Bogey. We'll see about Onyeka. All those guys are question marks on some level. We won't have an injury report until Sunday afternoon. So keep that in mind too. But it's a bad schedule spot, but it's also a winnable game because the Raptors are not very good. So that kind of levels the playing field a little bit. A chance to win 4 in a row. And then from there, the Hawks go west. They play Denver in their first game on the trip, and they go to LA, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll get into more of that later on. But an interesting spot coming up on Sunday. And hopefully you listen to this podcast before that game actually begins. I'll have a new one after that game is over. Please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you find your podcasts. Check us out on Apple, on Spotify, etc. We're also on YouTube. Please like the podcast as you're watching it, and tell your friends about the podcast as well. Ratings and reviews appreciated. All those places, comments on YouTube, etc. Follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. I'm also have some non-podcast work at Patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening into Sunday. I'll be back in about 24 hours, so stay tuned. We'll see you all next time.